and let us all do we can to build a better future.
All right, so there's a fallout and an aftermath of the chairman of the Arizona GOP who made a statement in regards to this infamous recording that came out. Now, this sounds like a man who's very sad that he got caught. This sounds like a guy who realizes that he doesn't really have any standing whatsoever with his constituents. This sounds like a person who is just clearly out of his league. And so, looking at this and everything that he has to say, I think it's important that we see first, before we get to the statement, we get to Kari Lake addressing her own statement. So first, let's pull up Kari Lake here real quick. I know, but it's quite hilarious.
Who told Jeff DeWitt to bribe me? I don't know. I wish I did know. As a matter of fact, I've thought about it many a day since then, and I've laid awake at night wondering who it could have been, what group, what person. But isn't it sad that you could literally, for 24 hours, think about it, wonder, guess, and that our government is so corrupt. Washington, D.C., the people back east, as he said, is so corrupt that you could literally probably come up with a list of about 400 or 500 people and groups that are behind this. And that's the sad thing. And this is why I am getting into politics. I'm in politics. This is why President Trump is in politics, because we want to make sure that we root out that kind of corruption. We can't have that kind of corruption happening in Washington, D.C. And frankly, it starts in Washington, in D.C., and it moves down into capitals across the country, into the state houses, into the municipalities. And what happens is people run for office and immediately they get bribed, they get blackmailed, and they become controllable. And this is what's wrong with our country.
And so I want to pull this document up here. And I want to share this tab. So this is from the Arizona Republican Party, released Wednesday, January 24th. That was yesterday, 2024. Statement from Chairman Jeff DeWitt. In light of recent revelation that Kari Lake has released a selectively edited audio recording of a private conversation, I must clearly address this deceptive tactic. The recording from over 10 months ago is not only taken out of context, but undermines the integrity of private discussions critical for party leadership. Dude, you were trying to bribe her, man. Like, look, I'm not a fan of the Republican Party. I'm not a fan of the two-party system. But in that recording, you're trying to bribe her. B-R-I-B-E, bribe. As chairman, my primary duty is to strengthen our party, which involves challenging dialogues and strategic decisions. You're telling her not to run, and you're telling her there's very powerful people that don't want her to run. These conversations are meant to assess and enhance the viability of our candidates. You said in that recording, Jeff DeWitt, that there are people who don't want her to run. The truth is, when I took the helm of our party was in disarray, financially unstable, organizationally weak, and lacking momentum. Really, or are you just self-projecting? Today, we have made significant improvements in acquiring new office headquarters, legal victories for election integrity, and historic fundraising achievements. That's how you got that money, didn't you, baby? Contrary to the notion of me being an enemy of Lake, this conversation was recorded while I was actually employing Lake in my private company. In fact, for over a year and a half, we held many conversations where I was looking out for her financial interests. Didn't sound like that to me. The ethical breach of her recording of our conversation while Lake was my employee raises serious legal and moral concerns. This act of recording was not just a betrayal of trust, but also a violation of the fiduciary responsibilities of an employee. Contrary to accusations of bribery, my discussions were transparent and intended to offer perspective, not coercion. Our relationship was based on friendship, and the conversation that is now being scrutinized was an open, unguarded exchange between friends in the living room of our house. I genuinely believed I was offering a helpful perspective to someone I considered a friend. You were telling her not to run, goof troop. Now, it goes on like this. Since our conversation where I advised Lake to postpone her campaign and aim for governor's position in 2 years, she has been on a mission to destroy me. You were an errand boy from people back east. You said that in your recording. You were an errand boy. All right. And he's saying, look, I'm a proud supporter of Donald Trump. who worked diligently as a CEO and CFO of his 2016 campaign, served in his administration for 2 years, returned as the CEO of the 2020 campaign. Like many Republicans, I'm eager to see him return to the White House. But wait, you're an errand boy for people back east, Home Slice. In closing, my actions will always reflect what's best for the Arizona Republicans, our commendable elected officials, and our mission to reclaim the White House. This is all such a distraction to that mission that I'm doing as Miss Lake wishes, and I'm stepping down as chairman of the Arizona Republican Party. You just wrote that one sentence like, hey, guys, I'm stepping down. My bad. Let's pull up this other video here.
Another question?
I got another one. Was this the first time that something like this has happened to you?
Oh boy, I don't even want to answer this because when I got into politics, it became so corrupt. I mean, I worked in media. The media is really corrupt right now. They're pushing propaganda. This is why I walked out of my job. I walked out of a 7-figure contract because I said, I don't want to be part of a corrupt cabal. I don't want to be part of pushing propaganda. And actually, I've never told this story. I don't even know if I should tell it. Should I tell that story? After we won the primary in the governor's race, there was an individual who'd been supportive of us, and we were really happy about it. And we asked him to become more involved in our campaign. We were really happy to have his support. He was a man who had been quite successful, and he wanted to start a PAC for us. He wanted to give some money to a PAC. For those of you who don't know, because I'm kind of new to politics as well, PACs will spend money running commercials for you and ads that will help propel your message or maybe expose what's going on with your opponents. And this individual was willing to put $1 million into a PAC. And I said, that's wonderful. Thank you. We're really happy. This is a grassroots campaign. If somebody has means and they want to put money into helping us get elected so we can save Arizona, we love it. And about 24 hours later, I got an email from this person who put his asks. He put his asks in. He said, well, if I'm going to do that, I have some asks that I demand of you.
See, there's no such thing as a free lunch in American politics. Because we have legalized bribery, thanks to the Supreme Court of the United States, thanks to the McCutcheon's decision, where money is speech and corporations are people, we have a system in which those who donate the money to the politicians, we have a system in which those that control the system can dictate what they want. Because after all, when you give out money like this, you're always going to be demanding a result. You're always going to be demanding something back in return. Because the corporate donors want rules and laws and legislation that's going to benefit them. See, when you vote, if you're a diehard Democrat voter or a diehard Republican voter, I'm pretty sure in the back of your mind, you're thinking your vote matters and that person who you are going to help elect into office is going to represent you in the halls of Congress, in the halls of the House of Representatives, in the halls of the U.S. Senate, and dare I say it, yes, in the White House itself. But listen, my fellow Democrat voters and Republican voters, oh, sweet summer children, you don't have a seat at the table. What Kari Lake is describing is an ask, and that is, I give you this money, but now you're going to do things for me, and only me. I don't give a damn about the people. How many times have we covered this here at Hard Lens Media? Plus, look, I got to bring up third parties. Third parties and independents who are constantly being screwed over by the two-party system at the behest of their corporate donors. Now, sadly and unfortunately, if there's ever to be a chance where there's going to be a multi-party system, I do have to agree with Jesse Ventura that instead of a two-headed monster, we might have a multi-headed monster. That's why we have to get rid of money in politics, because so long as money in politics weighs in, we will have no true representation in government, be it at the state level or at the federal level. Politics currently is a game at which the rich people control the system and you have nothing in return. So I find it hilarious when I see on social media the die-hard vote blue no matter who, and yes, even the die-hard Republican red voters go back and forth against each other, saying that their party cares more about America, or their party cares more about freedom, or independence, or justice, or integrity, and so much more. No. What happened to Kari Lake isn't anything new. This has been going on since long before any of us have been born. It just only got turned up to 11 thanks to the Supreme Court. So all this talk about Russia interfering with our elections, no, corporations are interfering with our elections. Wall Street investors, hedge fund managers, bankers, corporations, lobby groups like AIPAC, Big Oil, the military industrial complex, Big Pharma, the healthcare insurance industry, and so much more. Why do you think things are the way they are? You think it's because, Congress doesn't know what they're doing? No, they're being paid to write laws because they're owned. They're owned. They are owned. Let's play the rest of this.
And these asks were really outrageous. They were basically, you can't be around MAGA type people. You can't support President Trump. You can't support other MAGA candidates. And listen, I wanted to get the whole slate elected, and I wanted to bring our movement over to everybody who was running on the Republican ticket. I wanted everybody who was Republican to win. And so I said, I can't agree to those asks. And we literally said, thanks, but no thanks. And somebody who had been in politics for a while and who was on our campaign said to me, I've never seen anybody in the history of my time in politics who said no to $1 million because they didn't want to do a few simple things. But I didn't think it was simple to say, I'm willing to turn my back on President Trump. I'm willing to turn my back on other Republican candidates. I'm not willing to take somebody's money with a whole bunch of strings attached. So that was one example. There's been probably others that I can't think of right now. But when President Trump calls Washington, D.C. the swamp, he truly means it. It is swampy, it's disgusting, and it's corrupt.
Careful there. Come on, let's have some professionalism on the stage.
And I want to, we just had a little something dropped in my office here, and we want to change that.
I've got.
And I also want to pull this up here. Citizens United didn't unite any citizens. The Patriot Act didn't make any patriots. And the CARES Act doesn't care if you live or die. Mastermind Hour. That's why I love this chat. That's why I love this audience. None of you hold anything back, as you should. As none of you should. These rules, these laws put over us aren't improving our lives. We're being spied in on our cell phones and our emails. We're being told that things are good in our economy. And yet our elected officials, who are supposed to represent us, say that they care about us. I want to pull up one more video here. Let's just play this. Again, look, you don't have to like Kari Lake, but I do find this to be a very interesting case study. No pun intended, case study QB. But in regards to what is being exposed to the American people, and this isn't the first time ever. I have to tell you, the one moment when I saw in 2016, it was the first Republican primary debate. Trump was there. There were 15 other candidates on the stage. And the talk of money in politics was brought up. And it was so revealing to me because I did some, activist work here and there. I was part of Wolfpack back in the day. And when this topic of money in politics was brought up, Donald Trump gave away the secret sauce. He said, I give these people money and they do what I say. And we have to remember, at one point, Donald Trump used to be a Democrat. So not only did he donate to Republican politicians, but he also donated to Democrat politicians. And he gave them money, and they did what he said. Probably the first time in a long time the American people were told the truth, and that was done in 2016. We must never forget that moment. That first Republican primary debate, I give these people money, and they do what I say. The politicians, they're given money and they do what their donors say because at the end of the day, they're all like Joe Biden, Democrat politicians, Republican politicians who would gladly prostitute themselves, bend over so that the corporations can get what they want because that's who our politicians are. They're not leaders. They're hoes. If that offends you, well, then too bad.
A lot of why did it take 10 months for this to come to light? Why did it take?
Oh, I love that question. You guys you already know the answer because you saw the bribery audio. I'm hoping that if you were here since the beginning, you heard that, and then you saw what happened about 24 hours later. As you heard in that audio at my home, that was recorded at my home.
By the way, Kari, listen, great recording. My one gripe isn't because we might disagree politically. It's just you were eating too close to the frickin' mic. Whatever you were doing, it was quite distracting, but that's okay. I'll give that a pass. That's my one criticism of it.
Heard that I said I'm very busy. I'm packing. I'm finishing up my book called Unafraid. By the way, you can find that on Amazon or anywhere you get a book. Actually, only places that sell books written by conservatives. And I said, I have to go. I don't have a lot of time. I was getting ready and packing to go to CPAC. I was one of the keynote speakers, and I was really honored to have that honor to be a keynote there. And he said, as you heard in the audio, don't tell anybody this happened. Don't talk about this. If you say no, don't mention it, which is really suspicious. But I thought about it on the flight to DC, and I thought, you know what? I have to mention this. So I changed my entire speech when I got to CPAC, and I mentioned it. I did a whole speech on this. I did a whole speech about how corrupt the government is, how I had just in the last 24 hours been bribed, almost as if it was a movie. It didn't even seem real. And I did the whole speech. And since then, in several important speeches I've delivered and even talks with just small groups, I have mentioned that I was bribed by an individual to stay out of politics. They can't have us in politics. They can't have we the people in politics because we're too dangerous to the corrupt system.
Well, the system's already inherently corrupt. Now, I would love to actually have her on my show. I actually did reach out, sent her a private message. Hopefully, maybe we could. She would probably be the first Republican to be on our show, which would be great. You know, we never had a Republican on our show. We've had libertarians on. We've had socialists. We've had Greens. We've had Democrats. We've had all sorts of lovely people here on Hard Lens Media. We have yet to have a Republican on the show. That would be interesting. But you're running in a system and in a party that's also corrupt. And a couple of my questions would be to her, well, what's preventing you becoming just like AOC? Now, the thing is, a lot of us were blinded by the progressive Democrats and with the aftermath of the Bernie Sanders campaign of 2016 and going into the midterm election cycle of 2018. And yes, even some of us were still drinking that Kool-Aid in 2020, thinking that these progressive Democrats, these world heavyweight champions, these people who supposedly care about our values on the left, were supposed to fight for us, and they never did. They became just as corrupt. They became just as inept and became just part of the machine like any other Democrat, which is why there's a lack of enthusiasm, especially for 2024, since all of that hard work from 2016 up until now turned out to be one big waste of time. Justice Democrats, brand new Congress, our revolution, move on, all of them, DSA, one big waste of time because all what it was doing was continuing on with the Democrat machine and people believing in fear because they have to be afraid of the orange boogeyman. My question to her is, okay, you're running in the Republican Party. What's stopping you becoming part of that machine as well? DC is corrupt. It's a cesspool. Are you planning on being a one-term senator? I mean, if this isn't the first time you're being bribed, it won't be the last time. And eventually people do crack under the pressure. So it does call into question anyone that does run as a Democrat or as a Republican in 2024. How authentic will you be? How transparent will you be? And as someone who doesn't vote Democrat or Republican, I vote independent, I think this is something every single American should ask. And wake up, diehard Democrat voters and diehard Republican voters. Your politicians are corrupt. Now, I do have to commend Kari Lake for doing the right thing and saying no and calling it out. But you're part of the Republican Party. You can't change something that doesn't want to be changed. It's like all those progressive Democrats that try to reform the Democrat Party. I'm going to let the bear eat me and change the bear from within. No. This goes to anyone who's in the Republican Party trying to reform the Republican Party. When the bear eats you, you can't change it from within. You're being digested, and the bear's going to crap you out. So what can we take away from Jeff DeWitt resigning from the Arizona GOP? There's going to be a replacement. There are plenty of other Jeff DeWitts all across this country. There's a Jeff DeWitt in California. There's a Jeff DeWitt in Texas. There's a Jeff DeWitt in Illinois, my home state. There's a Jeff DeWitt in Indiana. There's a Jeff DeWitt in Hawaii, Alaska, Florida, Pennsylvania, New York, all over this country. Be it at the state level, city level, county level, you name it. There's a scumbag like him around. Why? Because our politicians and our judicial system allowed for its creation. So when I say we have to build movements and organizations not connected to Washington, D.C., yes, we have to. Question those that are part of the Democratic and Republican Party that try and drag you in or say that if you associate with us, we can help get your message out there even louder. No. You have to be post-duopoly. You have to break away. You have to start supporting citizen ballot initiatives, or either that, start making your state into a citizen ballot initiative so that we can actually have the great opportunity to call for the full abolition of all political parties. So long as there are political parties, the corruption will still run amok. Look at our economy. Look at our crumbling infrastructure. We don't have representation. We have people who are being bought and then being told to write rules for the rich. That's it. Americans can't get by anymore. The idea of owning a home or having anyone truly represent us is just that, a legend, a myth, non-existent. So I do have to say, with the fallout with Kari Lake, bringing this up to attention, I think a lot of us should continue to follow this story. I am very curious to see how she does for her campaign, whether or not she gets elected into office. The fact that there is the idea of people in power wanting to prevent somebody from running and they're willing to break the bank also makes me question, well, gee, if bribery doesn't work, well, what's next? Blackmail? Assault? Just because we live in the modern era doesn't mean that we don't have people acting like the ancient Romans. When I say keep your head on a swivel, I mean it. It's a crazy, evil world out there. It's always important to look both ways and just remember, take good care of yourselves out there. 2024, I said it was going to be an interesting election year. And I think I'm being proven correct. Stay tuned to Hard Lens Media.